Hey there. This CodeLab will be you working on this app. It's an infinite, I'm not sure if you can see it, but it's fine. You'll see it soon enough on your own screens. In this app, we have an infinite list of cool sounding startup names, such as Just Face. I like that actually. Just Face. They're all randomly generated. Ski Coach and Fog One. So that's what we'll be working on today. Hi, my name is Filip Hracek. I'm a DevRel engineer on the Flutter team at Google, and I wrote this app about 3 years ago. So we'll see how that it stands test of time. I should say that I wrote the CodeLab, but I wrote the code for the app, but not the code. The CodeLab was written by Shems Zakur. So if you're watching, Shems, thank you. And thank you even if you're not watching. And I just want to say, it's one thing to write some code that works, and it's another to actually make it into a code lab that has some beginning and end and so on and so forth. So first of all, if we look at my screen, I want to show you where you can access this code lab. It's over here in either you scroll down and you write your first Flutter app over here. The side of my face, you'll see probably the same thing where you can click here and go to part one. We'll be doing one today. You can always go with part two for in your own pace, right? So write your first Flutter app. Let me just make it a little bit bigger so I can see the next button. And here we have 7 steps. And again, we're building an infinite list of cool sounding startup names. The introduction I'm going to skip. And the reason I'm going to skip the introduction is because I want you to get to actually using and pushing pixels to a screen as soon as possible. There's a lot of things in that. You can go back then and read it, but just trust me, it's okay to skip for now the introduction and go to the next step. Step number 2. Now, this is probably the hardest step of the whole code lab, to be honest, because it's setting up your Flutter environment. It means that you have to, download stuff and so on and so forth. If you are one of those people who read the requirements to this code lab, you already have everything set up, because the only prerequisite of this code lab was to have a working Flutter installation. And so you're awesome. If you're one of those people, thank you. If you're not one of those people and you're now at that stage where, oh my God, I forgot or I didn't read it, it's all fine. You're still awesome. A little less awesome, but still awesome. And all you need to do is to pause me, which is possible apparently online. You can pause this code lab and go and click on Flutter SDK and go through all these steps here, including install. I don't know what operating system you have, so you'll have to do all of that yourself. Setting up an editor. Again, I don't know which editor you'll choose, and then test driving so that you're sure that everything works, right? If you have problems with it, and if you have any problems at any point in time during this code lab, you should know that I think I can see it, but in this, or maybe I can see it, in this sidebar next to my face, there's a Q&A session. And if you're one of the lucky few who have registered for this code lab, you can actually ask for help during the code lab and sometime after it. If you're not one of those registered, you're still very welcome. And there are things like, if you go to Flutter Dev and go to community and scroll down, you'll find that we have a Discord channel, for example, where you can ask a lot of questions. So you're not alone, okay? If you have any problems there. So with that, if you don't have your Flutter installation ready yet, please pause and get back when you're ready. So now we're all Now we're all set up. Let's go to step number 3. And that's creating your first Flutter project, right? This is done over in our case, we'll do it in the terminal. So open the terminal, PowerShell, or console, or whatever you call it, and go to wherever you put your software project. So that would be source for me. It could be whatever, desktop for you. I don't care. And we will basically copy paste these 3 lines. So Flutter create startup even namer. It doesn't matter how you call it, but it's probably easier for everyone if you call it exactly this, startup underscore namer, and hit enter. This will tell Flutter SDK to create the project from scratch and to add all the little files that it needs to make sure that your Flutter project runs later. We can change directory into this new project directory. And then we have that third item on the list. This, I think, it needs a little bit of explanation. You can totally just copy paste it and run it now. It's fine, but I want to talk about it. So Flutter, not too long ago, came from Flutter 1 to Flutter 2. So now we're at Flutter 2. Flutter 2 can totally run Flutter 1 project, so it's backwards compatible. But if you have a Flutter 2 project, it's a little bit faster, a little bit safer, a little bit everything is better. And so what this command does is if it takes a Flutter 1 project and migrates it automatically to Flutter 2. And that's what we want. We want all to be on Flutter 2, right? This will not be needed in even just a few weeks from now, because starting like yesterday, if you do Flutter create new startup project, new project, it will already be in Flutter 2. We're just in this transitional period, and some of you installed Flutter SDK before yesterday or didn't upgrade today. And therefore, I want to make absolutely sure that everyone's on the same page. And so we are migrating everything to null safety and to Flutter 2, basically. I'm calling it Flutter 2, but it's really null safe Dart. So you wait for this to finish. If you have current version of Flutter, as in you installed it or upgraded it in the past 24 hours, then this tool will just say, hey, you're already migrated. And in that case, sure, cool. All right, now what we'll do is we open the project in our favorite IDE, in our favorite editor. I am going to use Visual Studio Code. I'm actually going to use Android Studio. So I'm opening an existing project. You can use Visual Studio Code, of course. I'm going to source, and I'm going to startup namer. Can you see how I cleaned up everything? Pretty cool, right? I just have one project. So now that you have that open, you should see either in Visual Studio Code or in Android Studio, you should have this file open. And I just want to show you what that file is. This will take some time, so I think I have time to go over a little bit the file structure. So when you create a new Flutter project, you will get kind of like this file structure. It is different on different systems a little bit, but the main part is that really all you care about is this library lib directory, and in it there's currently one file, and we'll only be editing this file today, and it's called main.dart, and that's what you probably should have opened when you opened your project in the editor of your choice. That's what you see, right? So these are the 113 or 14 lines of this project, and the rest are things like Android, iOS, macOS, and web. In my case, it will be different if you're on Windows, for example, or Linux. And these are the targets. So Flutter makes sure that you have the files to build your app for all these different targets. So for Android, iOS, macOS, and the web, in my case. And of course, there's a test directory as well. All right, so, but just to be clear, 99.9% of your time you'll spend in the lib directory, just changing the Dart files. And with that, we go back to the codelab and we just copy paste this whole thing and replace everything that's in main.dart. So I'm going to delete everything in main.dart. I'm going to paste everything from the step 3 in the codelab and hit save, of course, right? Now, I want to make sure that before we run this app, and it is an app, it is a full app, you have your emulator or your physical device open. So in my case, I have a physical device right here, so that, and I have it mirrored so you can see what's going on. Okay. In your case, you could have a simulator open or emulator, but just open it. If you don't know how to open it, then in Android Studio at the top you have this part with the Flutter plugin gives you this part where you have a drop down menu and you can say open Android emulator, for example, right? When you're using Visual Studio Code, you have it down here at the bottom, and then you can also have, start mobile emulator and so on and so forth. So just make sure that it runs and it's connected. And I do have it connected and I do have it running. And so in Android Studio, I will run, or it says debug main.dart. I will run the project on the device. I make sure that it's selected over here, and it's not Chrome or desktop, but my device, and I hit this. While it's doing this, so it started debugging. It will take some time for the first time, so we have time to go to Visual Studio Code. In Visual Studio Code, if you have main.dart open, you just click on run and do start debugging. Okay, so while it's debugging, while it's running Gradle and building your app, let's spend a little time and actually go through the code itself. So there's 20 lines of code and it's a hello world app basically. And it starts with an import, of course, but then there is the main function, which is where every Dart program starts. And in this case, all it does, the main function just runs the, we're already there. It's fine. It's fine. I'll just keep going. So run app just says, I want to run an app that starts with this widget. In Flutter, everything is a widget, is what we say. And that means that you compose your app by putting widgets together. You'll see what I mean in a second. But in this case, we're saying, we have this widget called my app, and I want to have the app be this widget. And then, of course, we need to say or declare what that widget looks like. So we have a class here called my app, and it has only one method, as many widgets do, only one method that says build. And it's literally just a method that just returns a widget, in this case, material app. And that material app has in it other widgets, like, for example, a scaffold, which is literally a scaffolding, which has these things on it, like the app bar, which says welcome to Flutter, and the body, which is a centered text. As you can see in Flutter, even center is a widget, and that makes it composable, and that makes it very powerful. So we have this, and I think I'm just going to say call it a day or call it a step, and let's go to the next one. We have exactly what was advertised here. So, and we made some observation about the code. I think we can go to step number 4. Step number 4 is using an external package. Now, this is again a little different from many code labs. Many code labs try to not use any external packages and just do, especially, I mean, the starting tutorials. But I think that whatever you do in your next step, you will probably want to use some external code, some external package or something like that. And so I think it's nice to show you how to do it in Flutter. And for our case of an app that shows startup names, we need a package that deals with words. And lo and behold, there is a package called English Words. I just want to show you, you don't need to do this, but I just want to show you how you would do it if you didn't know about this package. You would go to pub.dev, which is this repository of libraries that are available for you as a Flutter developer. And you can just search for English, for example, right? Like we need something that has English things in it. And whoa, it's English Words. And you click on that and you go to installing, and then you'll find out how to install this package into your app, right? Oh, we know that, so we don't need to. I'm just closing this. I'm going back to, back to the code lab, and I'm going back to my editor. And this is the only time when we are going to edit anything else than the main.dart file. And it's going to be the pubspec.yaml file. If you open the pubspec.yaml file, which is in the root of the project, then you'll see that it's kind of this declaration of what this app is. It has the name in it, it has the description and the version and so on. And it also has dependencies. And we already have a dependency on basically iOS style icons in case we want to use them. And all we need to do is add this new line, English Words, and after the dependency, it always says what the version we want. What's the version we want? Make sure, because this is YAML, make sure that you have the exact same indentation as Cupertino icons, right? So this would be a problem if you have it like indented to the right, or if you don't have it indented at all, it would also be a problem. So just make sure it's like this and save. If you're using Visual Studio Code, that will automatically go and bring the package to you. If it doesn't do that for some reason, I've never seen that, but if it doesn't do that, you can go to, you're in PubSpec YAML, and you can just click on this download button. If you're in Android Studio, though, you can click, and you actually have to click on pub-get, which is basically get the packages that I have asked for. And that takes 1 second, so that's good. All right, and now we can actually use this new package. Now, for the interest of time, we're not going to be doing the next 2 steps like line by line, but instead I'll just ask you to copy paste from the code lab. And the reason I'm doing it is because I don't think code labs should test your ability to write letters into the editor. I think they're more about a journey through the technology and seeing what it can do and so forth, right? I do get that there is a good reason to write things by hand, but in this case, I'm just going to say, you know what, let's just copy paste everything here and go back to main.dart and remove everything that's there and copy paste everything that's here, okay? And I will walk you through the changes. But now if you hit save and if you open the app, or I mean, if you look at your editor, emulator or your device, you will see that we made the changes just by saving. And in my case, it created this new word pair or new cool sounding startup name called Payblade, right? Of course, it's not yet, we're not there yet because it's not an infinite list, but it's something, right? So what we did, we only changed 2 lines, really. We did the import of englishwords.dart, which is the package that we just downloaded. And we started the build method with creating a new random word pair. You can look at what that does. Creates a single word pair randomly. Now, if you need more than 1 word, blah, blah, blah. That's not really important, but we created this new instance of this word pair class, which comes from English words. And that class then is used over here in our little app as the text, right? So we could have something else here, like hello, but instead we have the word pair here. What you might, okay, you know what? I'm going to do one thing, and that is I'm going to just, in my case, you don't need to do it for you, but I'm going to make the style of this text a lot larger. So font size would be like 50. So you can see things a little better, okay? And so I have a broad tune, rich piece. So anytime I save, it will change what's shown over here. And this is because I have what's called a stateless widget. We'll get back to it later. And because anytime I run the build method, I'm actually creating a new random word pair, which is a good start, but it's not what we want, as mentioned before, right? But random words. Let's go back to codelab. And we are at the bottom of step number 4. We're going pretty quickly. Let me know if everyone's still kind of following without needing to pause too much. And now we'll actually learn a little bit about Flutter itself and about what we call stateful and stateless widgets. So, as I mentioned before, my app is currently the only widget that we have in our app that we made ourselves, and it's a stateless widget. Stateless just means that it doesn't have a state. It will every time you change anything about the app, or the app redraws, basically on every frame, it could be like it doesn't have any memory, right? Then we have a stateful widget, which you will need to have memory in your app, to have some state, really. And so for our little page that shows an infinite list of cool sounding startup names, I don't know why I'm still saying that, we need some state. We need to hold state. If for nothing else, we need some state so that when we scroll down and then we scroll up again, we don't want to see different suggestions that what we saw before, right? So we need to hold the state of the suggestions that we've already seen in this infinite list, right? We can't hold the whole infinite list, but that will be hard, but we can hold the things that we've already scrolled through. So that's why we need a stateful widget, and that's what we'll be doing now. We need to create a new, or we don't need to, but we will create a new widget, not my app, but it's going to be called random words. And this new widget will be stateful, right? So here it says you can create the new widget in 2 different ways. 3 different ways actually for us. One of them is copy pasting. So let's do that. But I'll show you how you can do it in an other way. Okay, but you don't need to do it. Just copy paste, and it's easier. But when you're building apps, you can't really copy paste everything from a codelab. So you will just use something like this. This is a stateful snippet, and I'm just going to hit enter or tab, actually, in my case, and say something like Filip widget, and that's going to create everything for me, the boilerplate here, and I can just work from there. The other way, of course, is to just like write it all myself by hand. In reality, you're not really creating that many stateful widgets, so just so you know. But in this case, we want to do that, and we have done it by copying stuff from a codelab, which is great. And now we have this stateful widget that really literally does nothing. It only shows a container, and if you see in Flutter that something is just returning an empty container, that's kind of like a no-op. It just says, I don't really want to do anything here. So that's not what we want. We could, and we might, and actually the codelab asks us to create a final word pair that is random. You can, of course, as always, copy paste from this part. So I am in step number 5, and I'm in the changing the random word state class. And then we can return it. I mean, return it in a text widget. So that would be word pair dot Pascal case. You can change the different things. And we are not using random words yet. So you can, just so you know how you would do it, you create this new class, you create this new widget, and you put it where you want it to be. In our case, it basically replaces the text in the center of our my app class or widget. So that's what we're gonna do. We're going to add random words and hit save, right? And now we're back at basically the same thing. I'm not sure if you can see that. You actually can't, right? So now we have death arm, but we have a beginning of something. We don't need this part, and we don't need all these comments here. Anyway, we're going to replace it with other stuff soon, so I'm not sure why I'm changing things around here. But what you learned here now is that you can extract things from anywhere, and you can create a new widget, and then that widget is reusable, and you can use it in different parts of your app, and it composes with other widgets. So you can put it in a center widget, but you can also put it into an align to the left widget, or transform widget, or translate widget, or whatever else you want to have, right? We could put this widget into the app bar, actually. Actually, let's do that. We can put it over here instead of the text. We can say random words, and if I save and show you, it now shows two different random words, basically. Okay, so we've learned that. Now let's go to step number 6. This is actually the last step, and so it's going to be a little more involved, but hopefully, again, we'll learn something along the way. So let's scroll back down to random word state. This is where we want to do our work now, and it's going to become, right now, random words is a widget that just shows one random word. Not very helpful. What we will do in this step is we will basically create a whole screen filled with random words that includes the add bar, and it most importantly includes a list view, basically a scrolling view of an infinite number of random words. So let's get to it. We are not going to touch the stateful widget itself. We're going to be changing things in the random word state, because we want things to stay the same. Also, yeah, random words, like the stateful widget, you normally don't really have much in it because it's the state that is kept alive. So the first thing that we'll do is we'll add some actual state into the random word state. And in our case, that's the list of suggestions, right? So I'm going to just copy paste it here. But this just says this is a field on the class random word state. It is a list of word pairs. You can't put anything else in it. It's a list of word pairs. You can't have like a 5 in this list. It must be of this type. And yeah, and the underscore, just if you're curious, the underscore at the start of the name just says you can access this field from anywhere else. And for good measure, we'll also add this line, which is basically just saying we want to save the text style to use for later. And now we can look at this part, our build method, and we can start writing into the build method. But because it's just a function, we can extract things from the functions to different functions. Remember, all the build method needs to do is return a widget, right? So if I do return, can I type? Return text hi, that's valid reply or a valid build method. But that also means that we can create other methods that are called from the build method and that make our code a little more readable. So that's what we'll be doing here. And again, I know that you're probably expecting this, but we're going to copy paste from here. All right. So we're going to copy paste the whole thing, the build suggestions thing, from the codelab step 6, bullet point 2, I guess, into the random word state class. And I'm going to go through it line by line, basically, but I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. It will not work yet, okay? So I just want to make sure that I have the exact same thing as you do. So it doesn't matter what you have in your build method yet. We'll be changing it later. And now we're adding this new private method to our class. It's called build suggestions. And all it does, again, is it returns one widget, and that widget is list view builder. List view is anything in Flutter that scrolls like this and has many items in it, right? It could go left, right, or up, down, but in this case, it goes up, down, and it's, as you can see, it's I hope you can see that it's fast, even though it's it's infinite. So what this does is the list view builders, you can have a list view, just list view, but that means that you have a list that you know from the start will be there. Like, for example, you have 20 items that you want to show in a list that you can scroll. And that would be just list view. But we have an infinite list. We can't have a list of infinite items. So we need to use a list view builder. List view builder, in this case, has some padding, so it just makes it a little nicer. And then you can ignore all the comments because I'm basically walking you through this myself, so you don't need to read the comments here. But all the other thing that you need to do in list view builder is just having an item builder, which is another function which takes some context we don't need. And then it takes a integer, which is the order or the number of item that we want to show. So this is item number 1 and so on and so forth. I mean, item number 0 actually, and so on and so forth, right? So list view or the Flutter framework will just call this item builder function for every time that it needs to show something. So now if you're scrolled 1,000 lines below, it will it will tell you, it will ask for item number 1000 and so on and so forth. And here's one thing, this, and I'm sure you can see this, but this particular list view has little lines in the middle called the divider. So they're just there for show. They're not doing anything, but they look nicer if they're there. So what we do here is we actually have logic in the function. And this is important. You can do whatever you want in your build methods. You can do whatever you want in your closures like this. And that involves things like asking, is the index an odd number, like 1, 3, 5, 7, and so on? And if it is, then we just put a divider there, which just means that, you know, every other item on this list is just a divider, just a 1 pixel line through it. And then if it's not odd, then it must be even, right? So it's 0, 2, 4, and so forth. And we just convert it here with very simple arithmetic into the actual index that we care about, the index that goes into the list of suggestions, right? So we get, like, let's say we get I is 16. It's not odd, so we don't show a divider, but instead we show index 16 divided by 8 is 8. I'm sorry, 16 divided by 2 is 8, and therefore we want the suggestion number 8. And then it does another thing, and that is if we don't have enough suggestions generated yet. So for example, we have only 10 suggestions generated and we're being asked for index number 12, then we ask for that and then create new suggestions over here, right? So we generate them. This is a thing that we get from English words, and then we add them to the suggestions. So as you scroll down, in the background, this creates more and more word pairs until infinity, or until your device crashes because there's not enough memory. But that would take several years of scrolling, so we're fine. So yeah, okay, and then we have our suggestions, and we just call another helper function called buildRow, right? So what does buildRow look like? It's pretty basic right now. So we want to make sure that we're still in random word state in the class. We don't want to, we're done with build suggestions, and we add a new one called buildRow. And buildRow is just a list style, which is like a nice thing with padding where you can add icons later and so on. And this will be in part 2 of this codelab if you want to continue with this codelab. And then inside it, there's a title, text, using the word pair that we have, and then the style that we declared at the top of the whole class. So now we have these two functions that we're going to use in our build method. And that just, let's go back to, let's go to the next step. And we're almost at the end. Let's go back up. We're still in random word state, and we want to replace this build function with something new, actually using the build suggestions method, right? So we're going to copy paste here and put it over here. I'm just going to, I'm going to leave this. And now if I hit save, let me show you what we have now. If I hit save now, it's going to look pretty weird because we have this we have basically two app bars, and but this already works, but we don't want to have two app bars for no reason. And so the last step in this whole code lab, in this part 1, is to go back to my app and significantly make it much easier. And in this case, we're going to remove the scaffold. We don't need it. And just say our home is actually random words, right? And if I hit save, I'm just gonna show my device here. If I hit save here, now we are talking. Now we have the app itself. So just to summarize, right? We have this app that has only one screen. It's the home screen, and it's called Random Words. Random Words is Stateful widget. It's a class, or it's a widget that has some state in it. And here is how we declare how it should look like. So it has some state, as I said before. Really, it's only the suggestions here. It's a list of word pairs. And then it has a build method that says, okay, I have a scaffold, meaning I have an app bar and a body and potentially other things, and like, for example, floating action button. And then we just say, yeah, this scaffold has an app bar with some text in it, and then it calls this build suggestions, which returns a list view, which is a builder, and so on and so forth, right? So we're declaring what we want the app to look like. And that's exactly what we get over here. So that's the end of part 1, right? Let's see. Yeah, that's the end of part 1. Part 2, and this is not what we'll be covering today, but you'll see that a lot of the complexity that you see here will make more sense, because you'll be able to add things like adding little icons to the list tile and making your favorites and going to another page in your app and so on and so forth. So this is all very much recommended if you want to see it through. I just want to show you also that you can totally, if you want to see how you can play with this, right? So sure, you can change this style of the text of these little things, and you don't need to do this, but I'm just going to like transform, rotate every single of these items by an angle of 0.2 radians. And you can see everything works exactly the same. Everything is exactly the same, except now our text is rotated by 0.2 radians to the right. Clockwise. So that's that. All right, again, if you have any problems, and if you're one of the lucky few who have been able to register for this code lab, then please go to the question and answers part, and you'll see that there's a bunch of Googlers there, and they will be able to help you in the next several hours, actually. I'll be there as well. So please ask things if you have any questions about that. If you're not one of the lucky few who've been registered, then again, go to flutter.dev and go to the community section and pick your choice where you want to talk to people from the community. The community really is friendly, and you would be missing a big feature of Flutter if you didn't talk to them and say hello, at least. So what we have done here today is we built an app. Let me show it. We have built an app that runs without modification on Android, iOS, the web, the desktop. And it shows an infinite list of cool sounding startup names. If you want to learn more about how these startup names are create it, you can go to the link of the English words package. And I built that package, by the way. So, and I'm happy to also answer questions about it. But more importantly, welcome to the Flutter community if you choose to stay over here. And thanks for watching.